Hi and welcome to GRVO TV, G's Reviews, Views and Opinions. Got an email yesterday from Panasonic with all the latest the specs on the Panasonic Lumix GH5, and it's all been announced. All the specs now are online pretty much. There's still a few things that we're not 100% sure about, but pretty much everything's available now. And they've also said going forward they're going to add a couple of firmware updates and add a couple of extra features as well. So I thought I'd do a preview, my thoughts on the camera. Now I've had the GH3, the GH4, I've got the G7 which I'm recording on, I have the G80 or G85, I've had the GF3, the GX1, the GX7, the GX8, the GX80 and the G6. GH3, GH4, yeah. So I've had pretty much the whole Lumix range. Now, one comparison I want to make is with Canon, Nikon, Fuji and Sony in particular. They seem to say to people, this is what we're going to do because we think it's best and you're going to like it or lump it. That's the end of it. And what I found, especially with Fuji shooters, is that they sort of almost convince themselves that they don't need some of these extra features. You know, I've my videos about, you know, why I chose certain cameras over Fuji create a lot of debate, and a lot of Fuji people saying I don't need a touchscreen and I don't need a fully articulating screen, and it's like, no, nobody needs any of this stuff, but these are all things that are nice to have and they make your life easier and more enjoyable when shooting with a camera, in my opinion.
Mind, are you? Or another question? Question to ask.
I'll ask you later. Yoda's going to weigh in as well. What Panasonic, in my opinion, do is they listen to what not only Panasonic shooters want, but what other shooters want. You know, if I was Fuji, I wouldn't just listen to Fuji people. Listen to what other people want. I would buy into the Fuji system, specifically the X-T2, if it had a fully articulating touchscreen. But it hasn't. And those are two things that I really can't live without on a camera. And that's just me. Panasonic, on the other hand, say, "Oh, you like a touchscreen? That's fine. We'll give you a touchscreen. Oh, but you want a thumb stick for moving your autofocus points. All right, we'll give you both, so you can choose. You can deactivate them. We won't make that touchscreen and we won't make that thumb dial specifically for those things. If you want to change them for something else, we'll allow you to do that." And this is what I've said before about Panasonics. They may not be right up there in the image quality department. You know, when you look pixel by pixel, image quality, noise, things like that, you're not going to get the best image that you possibly can. There are other ways of doing it. But what Panasonic give you is they give you a package that enables you to capture that moment. And to me, that is more important, because a picture which is 90% of what you possibly could get is better than not getting it at all. And that's what I found, especially with the Fujis, is I was missing too many shots and I was like, no, not interested in that. So that's why I've sort of chosen my camera to be the Panasonic G85, which is a stunning camera. I get the images I want. When I'm shooting for myself, I only shoot JPEGs. I've actually done paid work and given JPEGs and they're perfectly happy with them. I've set the camera up to produce the picture that I want. I don't edit virtually hardly any of my pictures. I'll just throw up some pictures now and show you. And these are just some portraits that I've done. And these are just straight out of the camera. And they're just how I like them. And I've printed from these and no problems at all. So moving on to the GH5. People said about the GH4, we need dual card slots really on this to make it a more professional camera. All right, we'll give you dual card slots, but we'll make them UHS 3 compatible or whatever it is. So they're good card slots. You know, you put 2 fast cards in, brilliant. And you can set them up however you want, as you would expect with a dual card slot. You want in-body image stabilization? Okay, we'll chuck the in-body. We've tested it out on a couple of cameras. It works fantastically. We have tweaked it. This is the version 2. And we've actually made it so if you've got Panasonic lenses, like this is the 12 to 35, the 45 to 150, it will work with your lens as well. It won't work against it, it'll work with it, so you get even better image stabilization. Fantastic. You want better noise capabilities. Okay, well, the way they've done that is they've improved the processing, and especially in video, it's going to be better, the low noise. Until we see some real proper pictures, we're not going to know, but it's going to be better. And to be honest, I'm perfectly happy with the low ISO, the high ISO images I'm getting out of my G80, and it's going to be better than that, so that's good. People were always moaning, and rightly so, about the crop factor when using 4K and then not having wide enough angle lenses. Okay, we'll use the whole sensor. There'll be no crop factor anymore when you're shooting in 4K. And while we're doing it, we'll up the 4K to 60 frames a second and give some ridiculous bit rates. And I think they're pushing the bit rates now up to, in certain circumstances, around 400 megabits per second, but 250, 200 megabits per second. I mean, that is just astonishing. If you don't know really what that means, your average camera would run generally between 15 and 30, 15 and 50 megabits per second. The GH4, I think, did 100 megabits per second. That was a good leap forward. And now we're getting even better. And it's just the amount of data that's there. And the more the better, basically. It is a simple thing as that. We're going to give you all the 4K photo features, which are brilliant, but we're also going to add in a 6K photo feature, which is only, rather than shooting at 60 frames a second, you can shoot at 30 frames a second, which is still astonishing, but you get something like an 18 megapixel still image out of it. Fantastic. Obviously, they've bumped the sensor up to the 20 megapixel sensor that was, obviously they did that in the GX8, and that was fantastic. In this, they went back to the 16 and they removed the anti-aliasing filter, and predictably in the GH5 they've said we'll give you the 20 megapixel and we'll remove the anti-aliasing filter. Fantastic. They've increased the refresh rate, I think it is, of the actual sensor, so you get less rolling shutter, that wobbly effect when you're fast moving and panning, which wasn't bad on the GH4 anyway, but it's even better. They've improved the depth from defocus autofocusing system, and I know people say, oh, it hasn't got phase detect and all that, but no, it hasn't. Panasonic have decided to stick with this DFD system, and it works fantastically well on this, and it's an even better system apparently on the GH5, so that's going to be a good thing. I've seen, or I've certainly heard the guy from Panasonic saying that, you know, photographing his dog running towards him at 9 frames per second continuous, every shot is in focus. Now, I'd have to test that out myself, but that is one thing that I do test it on, is running dogs, because they're very hard for cameras to track. When I had the EM5 Mark II, for instance, it just couldn't do it. You would get the shots because of the number of shots you took, but it didn't track particularly well. People used to complain that the small mini HDMI socket, that's not a professional thing to have, and if you have to use an adapter, people found that would easily pull out, which it did. So they've given it a full-size HDMI output, and they've actually got a locking device as well, which locks it in, which is fantastic. They've upped the size and resolution of the screen from 3 inches to 3.2. So that's a really nice, and that's sort of the overall size of the camera has grown a bit from the GH4, so it stands to reason that the screen's got a little bit bigger. The viewfinder has got a higher magnification, and I think it's at 3 million dots in the viewfinder, which is going to be stunning. Nobody liked that zaggy thing for XLR imports that you had to, that massive great big box that you put on the bottom. I don't know anyone that actually bought one. That was a bit of a pain in the arse, because I think it had to be powered by the mains or something as well. So they said, well, make that easier. They've got a hot shoe mounted twin XLR input system, and it also has a cold shoe on top, so then you can stick a boom mic on top. Obviously, lots of complaints from people or queries regarding the onboard mics pick up the noise of the IBIS. Well, they've used some sort of noise cancelling microphones in them, so it doesn't pick up the noise of the IBIS. And again, we'll need to test that out to see how well that works. But you know, it's a good thing that they're certainly looking at it. In-body image stabilization, just want to talk about that, is fantastic. And you start putting on lenses like this little, I mean, this is probably got to be my most favourite lens because of its price, its size, it's everything that Micro Four Thirds is. It's cheap, it's small, but it is stunning quality. And that's the Olympus 45mm f1.8 lens. It is just a stunner. Now, you put that on a Panasonic body now, and that's now got 5-axis image stabilization. It is fantastic. Really, really loving that. In low light, you know, you can, at a 90mm effective focal length, you can hand hold at like half a second. It's ridiculous. It really is good. The body obviously is weather sealed, I mean, as is this, and the GH4 was weather sealed, and the GH4 was really rugged. I'd done some testing and I've heard lots of people saying that they've had GH4s that have survived when other cameras haven't, and you know, I've not heard of any real issues with the GH4. I know people question sometimes these articulating screens, and I guess you could snap one off if you was clumsy, but if you're using it and not abusing it, then I think you'll be fine with that. I've never had a problem with any of my cameras with the flip out screen, and it's been absolutely fantastic. The layout is very similar. They've got a little joystick up here. Obviously there's a little bit more room because it's a bigger overall camera than I've got here. They've changed some of the buttons. The flip out screen, some people say, oh, it's quicker to pull a screen out from the bottom like that, but you know, you can easily flip this screen around, and you know, it's a great screen to work with, and it works brilliantly. So overall, is there any downsides? Well, yeah, I think with the camera growing so much, I think there are people that say, well, I'd have liked a bigger sensor, but it's not about the sensor and the size of the camera. The fact that it's got the smaller sensor allows you to use lenses like this, and I think that's the problem with things like the Sony 6000 series, and especially because you have a tiny little camera with big ass lenses stuck to the front of it, and to me that doesn't work. Fuji have done it much better. They've got specific lenses for the X-T2, so their lens system is not much bigger than these, and that works really well. But I think they've done the right thing by staying with the Micro Four Thirds sensor and just improved it immensely from what's gone previously. So that's great. What do you think? Hello?
The Force and its wisdom are all around us.
Yes.
Ask you will a yes or no question. Sense the Force in my left hand. Press it and answer you, I will.
Do you think I should buy the Panasonic Lumix GH5?
Simple question you ask.
Yep.
No, I answer.
Ah, no. Okay. So he said no, and to be honest, for me, personally, I think he's probably right. Because this camera does everything I want for about 600 quid, I think it was, £600-700, and it is a stunning little camera. You know, I don't really want for anything. And looking at what the GH5 has got, yes, it's got some fantastic features, but the majority are things that I probably wouldn't use. One other thing I didn't mention was it's now got Bluetooth as well. Now it's Bluetooth LE. Now I've used Bluetooth LE before, and that's low energy with a smartwatch. And basically what it does, it enables a more permanent connection, but without using loads of power, because Bluetooth is generally power hungry. But with the Bluetooth LE, you get a connection, and a more reliable connection than, say, Wi-Fi, and you can sort of leave it on for longer without, say, draining batteries. So what I'm guessing is that, and if you see I've done a video of the G85 tethering to an iPhone, which is via Wi-Fi. I'm guessing that you're going to be able to do that via Bluetooth, which will be a more efficient, a quicker system and less power hungry. So that will be really good as well. But as I say, we're yet to see how that works, whether that's an always on feature or, you know, how that is going to pan out. But yeah, for me, this is all the camera I want. Would I like to get one? Yeah. Will I get one? I might do. Price wise, it's the same price as the OMD EM1 Mark II, which I can see why they've pitched it there, and I can see that it is value for money because it is a professional tool, in my opinion, the GH5. It's due to come out in a couple of months. I'm sure we'll see lots more videos and people will get it in for review. I won't be able to get one in for review. I don't get anything. I have to pay for everything that I get. I'm still waiting for my battery grip, my free battery grip from Panasonic. I haven't got that yet. So, is it a camera that I would get? Possibly, but one little niggling thing in my mind is that it has got a little bit bigger. Now the GH4 is a fairly hefty camera anyway, and it's sort of pushing into the bounds of around the same size, maybe bigger than, like an entry-level Canon or Nikon, like the T6i or whatever it is, and the Nikon 5000 range. So I've got sort of a little bit of a, yeah, okay, is it getting a little bit too big for Micro Four Thirds? But I will caveat by saying, and I know it's going to be a really beautiful, comfortable camera to hold. You've got no limits on recording and things like that. They've somehow bypassed all that with that range. I don't know how they do it with that camera particularly. Perhaps they call it a video camera, I don't know. But yeah, so if I've missed anything, I'm sorry. I've tried to go through the things that are sort of important to me. There's lots of stuff about the video and UHD and anamorphic and things like that, which professionals I think will be looking at. Not something that interests me or I'm ever going to use or the average user is ever going to use. So this camera is probably not for me. It's a bit too much for me. But if someone was to give me one, I wouldn't turn it down. Or if I came into some money, I'd probably buy one, to be honest. But there you go. So I can't speak highly enough of this range of cameras. I'm not a fanboy. I will use anything. But all I would say is Panasonic, give me what I want in my cameras. And, you know, you can't ask for more than that, can you? So anyway, this is GRVO TV, G's Reviews, Views and Opinions on the launch of the Panasonic Lumix GH5. See you soon. Cheers, bye.